Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
We are speaking with the one and only Roger Glover of Deep Purple. The new album, Turning to Crime, is out on November 26th. I've had a chance to hear it. It is absolutely fantastic. And as we say here in Montreal, bonjour, Roger. Comment allez-vous? How are you?
Je suis bien.
Bien, good. And I know that you do great when you come to Montreal. It's been an incredible market for you over the years. We love our Deep Purple here. Talk to me a little bit about the concept of this album in terms of you don't have any original material on this. It is essentially a covers album. Was that an interesting to take on other people's songs and say, hey, let's Deep Purpleify them?
Yeah, it was. The problem was, we don't write Deep Purple songs.
Right.
We have to be together and we jam and they kind of evolve out of those jams. And since we couldn't get together, we all live in different parts of the world. And so if we take the writing part out of it, all we got to do is perform. That can be done remotely in our home studios,
right?
Which is what we did. But there certainly was an intention to pay respect to the original, of course, but to write enough of it into it, like the odd solos or different arrangements are going places, just to make it interesting and make it fun and make it different.
Yeah, talk to me about the choices, because you look at Mitch Ryder and Huey Smith and Rockin' Pneumonia and Boogie Woogie Flu, which Aerosmith once covered. How did these choices come about? Because you didn't go for giant, massive hits. You didn't go for, hey, let's cover whatever, a Huey Lewis song. You went for more sort of, music fan kind of songs. Talk to me about the choices and who made them.
Well, we are music fans, ourselves, of course. And lived long enough to live through that beginning of rock and roll and how it transformed itself from the early days of Chuck Berry and Little Richard into the Beatles and Bob Dylan, and then the West Coast music came along, and it was just I don't know, it was a wonderful moment in time. There's a big creative surge going on.
Yeah.
Record companies were run by people who loved music, bankers and accountants were, just paid people. Now they're in charge. But those songs, when you hear them, there's some great songs. Everything's so different. There was a freedom in the air. And when those songs, you heard those for the first time, they stay with you. That's the magic of music. You hear it once and bang, it's part of your system. You can never forget it. And so covering songs from the last 10, 20, even 30 years didn't really appeal to us. Hang on a sec. Go.
It's like me on this side. I'm stuck with two dogs here who might bark at any moment. But hey, that's what COVID has brought. We do this from at home now, right? I mean,
Well,
say la vie. But
the mother's away. That's the young girl, right? And I left a note for her as well.
It's okay. I'm just fingers crossed these dogs don't start barking. But yeah, so it is interesting that you went back to the beginning. Let me move on to a next question. You've worked with Bob Ezrin, and Bob Ezrin is one of those guys who belongs on sort of the Mount Rushmore of producers. You've got Mutt Lange, you've got Bob Ezrin, and a couple others. Talk to me about working with Bob, because you've produced. You could easily say to the guys, hey, I've produced, Michael Schenker and Nazar. Let me do this. But you bring Bob in. What does Bob bring to the process, to the sound? Because it's the fourth album in a row right now.
Well, he takes the weight off my shoulders.
Yeah.
It's not fun actually producing the band you're in.
Right.
It's a lot of hard work, and people don't listen to you because you're the bass player. In my mind, I'm wearing different hats, but in their mind, it's the same old hat, So it can be done, but it ends up being more of a sort of committee production, because you obviously, if you're in the band, you want to please everyone. Yeah. Whereas a producer might piss a few people off, but you've got to get a great mix, and that's what Bob does. I don't think he was particularly interested in producing us to start with. He didn't want to be known for producing old acts, classics and stuff. But he came to see us in Toronto, actually, and he was blown away with, I don't know quite what, but he took us on board, and we've just developed this amazing rapport with him. It's become a friend, He really enjoys working with us, and we really enjoy working with him. So it's hard to we don't want to stop that.
Yeah. And you have, of course, produced Deep Purple albums in the past. Is there an importance, though, to have outside ears to a project? Because you can get self-indulgent. I'm not saying that you did on the runs you did, but there's a tendency to get self-indulgent if you don't have outside ears.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, I'm aware of that, and I listen to music with an outside ear, even though I'm part of it. But it is difficult. Yeah, a fresh set of ears is always great. That's why I like a gap between the recording of an album and the mixing of the album. Because the recording of the album, I'm doing one thing, and performing and writing as well. Mixing, there's got to be some space, at least a couple of weeks or something like that. So you're coming to it with a fresh ear. Yeah. But with Bob, there's no need to do that. He's the constant fresh ear.
Bob is great, and a fellow Canadian. You've had now what? Infinite, Whoosh, and now, of course, Turning to Crime. 4 albums in the last 8 years, which is quite remarkable for a band of your stature, because you could easily go out there and do a greatest hit set, play 15 songs and say, here's Smoke on the Water, thank you very much. Why continue make new music? What's the importance of staying vital and staying on the ball and keep making new music and not just sort of rely on the hits?
Well, we're still living.
Of course.
That's we still enjoy what we do. And I think Bob Ezrin's brought a kind of new feeling to the band. Before Now What, there was an 8-year break with no album. Yeah. And we'd kind of lost faith in albums. They were kind of a drag to do. And we were touring all the time. We're fortunate. We're a band that don't need albums to tour. We just tour.
No, you don't.
So, but meeting Bob changed all that. I think he brought out a whole new songwriting streak in us, and being brave enough to do things that may be questionable. But there's always this ethic in the band that actually there's no thing like a Deep Purple song. Right. It's whatever we play is a Deep Purple song, so that kind of broadens all the horizons. We're still a hard rock band, of course. But, that's the heart of it. But I think at this late stage in our career, it's actually wonderful to have this kind of this surge in the last 10 years or so.
It's a great surge, and it's been fantastic for the fans. In terms of making new music, are you at a stage now where when you make it, you don't have to worry about the AOR guy and the label guy, and you just make the music you want to make? Or do you sort of have to say to yourself, listen, we're Deep Purple, the fans expect a certain something, let's give them that certain something? Do you have to make a Deep Purple sounding album, or can you be completely free to do whatever you want?
I think we could be completely free to do whatever we want, yeah. And it's hard to pinpoint what the spirit of the band is all about, really. It's all about music, we don't think about the fans and what they expect. We think about what we like to do. In fact, I have no expectations about anything. So we start some songs and I think, oh, well, I'm not sure where this is going, but it turns out to be great. So no expectations is always a good place to be.
It really is.
But I think there's also a feeling that if we started listening to what fans want, we'd be totally confused because they all want different things anyway. Yeah. So we can only please ourselves. And if they like it, great. And if they don't like it, that's great too. We don't care.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to be. As a producer yourself, talk to me about how you veered off into production, because you were with the band and you had a lot of success, even with the the David Coverdale and the Glenn Hughes lineups. You've always been successful on top of your game and touring and touring and touring. At what point did you say, hey, you know what? I'd love to sit with Barbie Benton and work on this album. I'd love to sit with Rainbow and work on. Why not just be the bass player in Deep Purple?
Well, when I left Deep Purple in '73,
Mm-hmm.
it was not a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
But by that time, a good friend of mine, we'd formed, or management had formed Purple Music, Purple Records, and they were looking for stuff. And a good friend of mine called Rupert Hine
Oh yeah.
had written some interesting songs, and I managed to get him a deal with Purple Records, and there was no one to produce it, so I did it. And that was my first production. I had no idea what I was doing. I just, there's a feeling of power. You're empowered when you can control things like this,
Yeah.
You can even tell a bunch of musicians when they can, have a break. There's power for you. But I didn't know what I was doing. It's just really instinct and love of music. And a little while later, an unknown band called Nazareth got in touch with me and asked, if I'd produce their record. And I went in and produced one song. It's called Broken Down Angel. And later on, a couple of months later, we did the rest of the album. And then I went on tour in '73 and was busy. Leaving Deep Purple in the middle of the year. I got home and pretty depressed, having just been sort of eased out of the biggest band in the world at that time.
By the way, we're glad that you're back, by the way. I'll just say that.
And I opened the papers a couple of days after getting home, and there was Nazareth sitting at number 4 in the charts. I thought, wow, a production of mine, isn't it? Wow, Yeah. And I just fell into production. There was no touring anymore, so I had plenty of time, and I don't know, productions just came my way. People just called up and said this and that. So.
Hey, listen, if I was making a record and I'd say, hey, I could work with the bass player of Deep Purple, I'd be calling. I mean, I'd be calling,
Well, secretly, I thought they just want my name on the record. I don't know what I can bring to it. I'm very much in the dark as to what producers do. It's just purely flying by the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
But I've come to the conclusion that what a producer does is many faceted. But the main thing is to make the artist feel comfortable, because you can't really express yourself if you don't like this, you don't like that, or the sound's bad, or just got to create a nice atmosphere in which they can feel comfortable and be the third ear.
The third ear. Now, we've only got 15 minutes, so I'm just going to throw 2 last questions at you, and then we're going to have to go. But Turning to Crime, of course, does come out at the end of this month. Will you tour it where you will play 5 or 6 or 7 cuts on this, or will you just go do a regular Deep Purple tour, maybe throw in 1 or 2? Is there going to be a Turning to Crime tour?
No. But I suspect that 1 or 2 of them will get that for sure. But we don't know what that's going to be. I mean, we normally sort of get together the day before the first show and figure out what we're going to do. We don't rehearse for 2 months with stage sets and special effects.
That's what I love about Deep Purple.
We're a real down to earth band, and in fact we kind of rehearse in front of people. But that's part of life. It's just yes, we'll be probably this time a bit more than a day because we've been off for a couple of years. I need to remember how to count to 4.
Yeah, well, hey, we love it. And I'll finish on this. You had a chance to produce the Michael Schenker group. Talk to me about that, because Michael is very a perfectionist. He knows what Michael wants. How difficult or how easy was it to say, hey, Michael, let's harness this energy. Let's make this album, because it is a masterpiece. It is a great, great album, and you had a lot to do with that.
Yeah. It's he was in a great point in time. He'd been through a lot of ups and downs, with God knows what, alcohol, drugs, and whatever. But he was clean and he was straight, and he was a joy to work with. He's on the ball, and he knows what he wants. And all you can do is give him what he wants. He's the star. And he was very easy to work with. I gotta say, we became quite friendly then.
Yeah, he's just a great talent. Anyway, we've run out of time. I could do this for another hour, but as we say in Montreal, merci beaucoup. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you, man. Nice talking to you.
Absolutely. And I look forward to another Deep Purple show. The last one here was just brilliant. So come on, let's do it again.
Well, I'm with you there.
Thank you, sir.
Crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope. Merci bien.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye-bye now.
All right, perfect.